Meanwhile, the federal government has expressed its commitment to engage with relevant stakeholders to boost power sector investment for economic development. The Director of Information and Public Relations, Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mohammed Manga, disclosed this when the Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, met with World Bank delegates in Abuja. The delegates were led by the country director of Nigeria, Mr. Ndiame Diop, and the special advisor to the President on Energy, Ms. Olu Verijain. According to the statement, the meeting is in view to reaffirm President Bola Tinubu's administration's commitment to repositioning the economy for the future of Nigeria. Minister of Finance said the meeting was to discuss innovative ways to drive Nigeria's power sector forward and also focus on World Bank supported initiatives such as the ones involved in power sector recovery operation and the distribution sector recovery program. Nigeria's oil and gas industry has been a significant driver of economic growth, but it has also faced numerous challenges in terms of sustainable development and local content, which is why the Petroleum Industry Act was introduced. One of the main objectives of the PIA is to increase local content in the oil and gas industry and ensure efficient operation of that sector. Experts say the proper implementation of the PIA, there are a lot of challenges around the implementation and that needs to be addressed, unlocking the full potential of Nigeria's oil and gas sector. But what are these issues and what is happening in the downstream at the moment? Let's get talking. I'm being joined by public affairs analyst. He's also a journalist, Mr. Nelson Ekujumi. It's good to have you on Business Nigeria. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. I think we'll start with the PIA because it's very important we talk about this document. What exactly are the current gains of the PIA in your understanding? Is it meeting expectations?
Oh, absolutely, because you recognize that the PIA was an audacious move to reposition the Nigerian oil and gas industry from its, chaotic nature that it had in the past. And the PIA was signed into law in 2019 by former President Muhammadu Buhari, for which we must commend him. That law is meant to put in place legal governance, regulatory, as well as legal framework, and the host community, legal as well as supervisory, framework for the industry.
I get your point.
And the act bets two regulators, which is the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, as well as the midstream and the downstream.
Yes.
And we can see clearly that the two regulators have been up and doing. And also, we must recognize that the PIA also transformed the NNPC into a corporate limited liability company in 2022. So the NNPC left the role of regulator that it was before and now became majorly a player. So the PIA also has this benefits of taking care of the host communities through a trust, board. Yeah. And that supervisory role is being played by the regulatory authorities to ensure that the operators of the industry comply with the provisions of the law. So the PIA, by and large, is one that has, engendered public and international confidence in the Nigerian oil industry, with a view for Nigerians to benefit maximally from what God has, endowed us with, unlike what obtained in the past.
Recently, Dr. Lisa Agbakoba, SAN, called for the repeal and reenactment of the PIA. I'd like you to react to this, looking at the positives that we expect from this act.
Well, it's with due humility and respect to the learned silk, I think it is important for us to always ask that, do we repeal a law for repealing's sake, or because we have identified some lacuna or lapses
in that law?
If you look at the PIA, for example, the PIA was the first attempt in decades to restore sanity into the Nigerian oil and gas industry. And we can see that being, that happening. Now the PIA specifies the role of the stakeholders such that there's no cutting corners. You either abide by the rules or you are pushed out. And the PIA is very, very explicit. So if any person is calling for the repeal of a law, you need to ask, in what way has this law failed to meet the expectations? But we must recognize the fact that the PIA is a law that even the present administration is pursuing, and even recognizing that no law is immune from being subjected to review. As we speak, the PIA is still meeting up to its expectations, because the Nigerian oil and gas industry has suffered over the years from lack of planning, from enabling laws, from lack of basic infrastructure. You talked about scarcity of petroleum products. You and I know for free that a major factor responsible for it is logistics. I remember during the days of former Minister of State for Petroleum, Ibe Kachuku, where he mentioned that anytime they are pumping fuel to the depot, that is when vandalism occurs. And if you go around the depots today, the depots are no longer functioning. Just about 2 or 3 days ago, I was in Ondo State, and I passed through the NNPC depot in Ore. It's like a ghost town. That was a business environment in all its ramifications from morning till the following day. So if Nigerians have vandalized pipelines, have vandalized depots, how do we ensure efficient delivery of products across the country? Because NNPC, before it became NNPCL, had depots across the country to make fuel accessible to Nigerians wherever you are. But today, everybody has to come to Lagos to lift crude oil, to lift petroleum products, and you and I know how our road networks are. Accidents will occur on the way. The present scarcity, floods and all. We've been told that is due to logistics and thunderstorm and what have you. So if we don't have alternative position about the true situation of things, apart from what we get from the official sources, I wonder why we'll continue looking for solutions when we know the solutions are already with us.
Now that it's clear that NNPC is no longer a regulator in this market, many will still say NNPC still has one-way role to play. Even the PIA allows that as supply of last resort.
Last resort because of national security.
Because we need energy security.
Of course, absolutely.
For us as a country. So are they doing enough? And would you say, why are they the sole importer of PMS at this time?
Well,
one question that.
The truth of the matter is that I'm not a fan of NNPCL because if you look at its past, but if you look at the present situation, you know that NNPC is doing more than enough, because NNPC has become the savior now, the supply of last resort. Because in the past, a lot of the marketers were importing petroleum, especially PMS, because the issue of diesel and aviation fuel is still being imported by, some of these marketers. But today, all of them have abdicated that responsibility to the NNPC because of this difficulty in accessing forex. So if they have abdicated that responsibility, and NNPC, in view of its national security position, has taken up that responsibility, and we can still access fuel within the geographical territory called Nigeria, I think we should give them a big kudos.
So you think they are doing their best, right?
Absolutely. Within the confines of the economic and business environment they are operating. For example, we just talked about the fuel pipelines. We just talked about the depot. NNPC are not spirits. Security agencies. So if NNPC cannot pump fuel to the stations, to the depot, and that fuel have to be lifted through road, that the railway, only recently we have been told that the railway wagons will be used for transporting petroleum product. When that will happen, it's not within the purview of NNPC. You know that NNPC does not control the railways. It's within the jurisdiction of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. So if we are relying on only one source for distribution of petroleum product, which is the road, definitely we know we still have a long way to go.
There's a lot of work here, because I'm seeing that other marketers in the sector, maybe members of MEMAN and all of that, they are able to bring in DPK, that's diesel, and also jet fuel, jet A1 and all of that. But others, like the likes of MRDEP, that have licenses are registered by NPRA, are not able to bring in this product. But has that affected? What do you think that means for the market?
What that means for the market is that we'll not have a glut of supplies, because now the supply is coming from only one direction, which is the NNPCL. You can imagine if we have multiplicity of supplies into the market. It means if, like we say in Yoruba, onokon woja, you know, if you are not selling at a price or people cannot access your product, people will move to the next, business entity.
Yes.
But in this case, they have all left that role because of the difficulty in accessing forex for NNPCL. And that is why today NNPCL seems like the sole importer, not because they want to, but because the PIA mandates them to play that role.
And it's good that Nigerians understand this part of it, because many still even think that the NNPC is fixing prices, which is not happening.
Absolutely not.
It's not happening.
Absolutely not.
You know,
that is why when you go to the petrol stations,
yes, you see the price.
You see the prices. And fortunately for us, a lot of Nigerians now prefer to queue. You see long queues at NNPC filling stations compared to others because of the price differentials. That is to tell you that
NNPC. Mr. Ekujumi, you agree with me. Communication seems to be very key. And would you say it's better than what we used to have than talking about NNPCL, the NUD? Do you think it's better than what we used to have?
Absolutely. If you look at this present crisis that, surfaced in Abuja and Lagos. In Lagos, I'm sure you know it has eased off.
Yes,
it's only in Abuja I saw pictorials and videos of queues still there. But be that as it may, I think the level of communication from these agencies, I think it has improved than what we used to have. And the communication is such that the information churned out, if you interrogate it, you know that it's logical and rational. Because I listened to the director of NNPCL that came out and said, look, the thunderstorm, that it is dangerous.
Yes, they cannot transload.
They cannot transload, and
vessel to the
yes, and when PMS comes in large vessels, they have to be translated to smaller vessels, for disembarkment. So those are explanations that we must commend them for coming out from, because in a way, the information that came out with regards to this issue at hand went a long way in dousing the tension among Nigerians, especially here in Lagos, because we monitor the situation. And when that information came out, within 24 hours, you saw queues disappearing, because, Nigerians, we love to take advantage of one another. People saw it as an opportunity, to hike the price. And some persons were already calling us, and they say, oh, we heard that the price of PMS is going to change, it's going to be hiked. And the question we threw back at them was that, what is your source? And since they didn't have any source, so the rumors disappeared.
It's not valid.
Yeah.
But what can be done to lessen the burden on the NNPCL from being sole importer or co-importer of PMS at this time?
I think what can be done to lessen the burden on the NNPCL is for us to ensure that the local refineries come fully on board. One is very happy that Dangote refinery is coming on board to producing PMS by August. We also have this information that Old Port Harcourt refinery is also going to come on board in August. And the NNPCL GMD, I read in the media that the NNPC GMD has promised Nigerians that by the end of 2024, will be an exporter of PMS. But also we must recognize that the world is gradually moving away from fossil fuel. We are moving towards cleaner energy.
Important point there.
Very, very.
Energy transition.
Energy transition. So
that's where we are headed. But like many will still say, let's take advantage of what we have at the moment. Explore it more.
Absolutely.
Look at gas.
Yes.
If we deviate now, we won't go. Because look at what we have with gas, both proven and unproven reserves.
Yes.
And it shows that even if it's properly harnessed, and we see the Minister of Gas now, that's in Petroleum Resources Gas, you see him doing a lot trying to work on that space. But let's not move away from our conversation. But you might want to comment on that. I don't mind. But what do you also make of this controversy in recent times between, of course, Dangote Refinery, the NNPCL, NMDPRA, and NUPRC?
As well as the IOCs.
And the IOCs. Very important. Thank you.
I think what has played out clearly is that some of the stakeholders in the oil industry are not in tune with the provisions of the law, meaning that the regulatory agencies still have to engage in stakeholders meetings, in sensitizing them that, look, this is what because when the Dangote Refinery management came out, to make that allegation, as social scientists, what we did was to subject it to, interrogation. And subjecting it to interrogation, you recognize that they were just crying wolf. It was like they were seeking, undue advantage in contravention of the provisions of the PIA, which is the law guiding the oil industry. So I think the regulatory agencies, even including NNPCL, have a role to play in ensuring that there's enough information out there so that when any of the stakeholders, try to cry wolf, people will already tell him, look, we know what the law says. Don't come and incite us. We are not party to it. Go and play by the rules. Because when Dangote Refinery management came out, one is aware that Section 64 of the PIA stipulates that as much as it makes provisions for provision for domestic supply of crude oil, it also provides there willing buyer, willing seller. Which means it must be on business economic terms. It shouldn't be on any other terms, apart from business terms. So if you are willing to buy, the seller must also be willing. You must come to an agreement. The PIA does not make room for any advantage for anybody, for any of the stakeholders. And that is why, one is happy that it seems Dangote Refinery management has finally seen reason. They have reconciled. We just hope that this reconciliation, will stand.
Indeed, because we hear, for me, just doing the normal mathematics, we are doing about 1.3 million barrels.
3 million barrels per day.
This refinery,
and we have a capacity for doing about 2 million barrels per day.
I think the security agencies are even meeting now, and they are coming out very hard on this crude oil theft thing. I saw that before I came on air. My colleague from Abuja sent it. I think a meeting is on. The GCE of NNPCL is also at that meeting. I think they're going very hard. They said there's a directive from the president to really address this issue of crude oil theft because it's affecting us so very much as a country.
I think in addition to the security agencies,
please.
I think it is also important for these host communities
they need to
be carried along. Because under the PIA, the host communities are entitled to 3%. So if we are producing 1.3 million barrels per day, and you are getting 3%, if we produce 2 million barrels per day, you can calculate what 3% will amount to. So it is in the interest of the host communities themselves
for it to improve production,
jealously guard and provide information such that the development we desire through the PIA in the oil and gas industry will be fully, harnessed.
What more can government do to strengthen and encourage investment in the downstream of the petroleum sector?
Well, what government can do presently is to ensure that the PIA is implemented to the latter, and that it is also subject to periodic review. Like we say, man is not made for law, law is made for man. At every point in time in the implementation of a law, you can see new developments, you can see a new need arise, you can see new challenges. So the PIA must be implemented to the latter. The government must also ensure that it provides the enabling security to allow us harness our full potentials with regards to crude oil production, because the PIA is not going to produce the crude oil for us. It's right there in our soil. It's for us to ensure that the issue of oil theft becomes a thing of the past, because a lot of times one has been worried that, come on, Nigeria is not the only oil producing country in the world. How come even till now we cannot address this issue of crude oil theft? At a point in time, due to crude oil theft and vandalism, from about 2 million barrels per day under former President Muhammadu Buhari, we dropped to about 500,000 barrels per day.
Remember.
So for close to a year, so you can imagine the amount of revenue that the Nigerian economy lost.
This really has a lot because some people are buying this crude, not just anyone. So it's an international crime. I think a lot really needs to be done.
And also, that is why it is important for those who are claiming that the IOCs are controlling the oil industry to recognize that the oil business is a global business.
It is.
And for you to play at the global stage, you must open up your doors. And that is why the expertise, the financial muscles that the IOCs have is something we cannot but tap into in view of the global economic challenges confronting the world as a result of COVID-19, as a result of the war in Europe, as well as in Gaza. So the Nigerian government needs to ensure that the PIA is implemented to the latter. The Nigerian government needs to ensure that whatever it takes to ramp up our production to our ability that we were doing before. We were doing 2.1, 2.3 before, before we had all this trouble. And ensure that if we play by the rules, you don't need anybody to tell investors to come, and even local investors are waiting to take advantage of that industry.
Mr. Nelson Ekujumi, I must thank you so much for your brilliant contributions to the program today. A public affairs analyst, journalist, thank you so much and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right then. Coming up.